Hello, guys. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today, I have Miss Danielle in again today. She is going to be talking about why she left her toxic job. She's given me lots of good information, so we are just going to let her have the floor, tell what went on, in her whole situation. And I know with her telling her story, it's going to help someone else out there. The reason why I bring this kind of stuff to the channel is so that it can help encourage someone else. So I know that her story will be able to help and encourage you, and maybe even help you make a decision if you're on the fence wanting to do this as well. All right, Ms. Danielle, you go ahead and tell your story. We're all ears.
All right. Thanks for having me, Miss Leslie. I have quite a document here. I took notes. I'm not going to do all of that because I know for the sake of time, but I did want to share my toxic work experiences. I left August 2024. I quit a job with no notice. Essentially, the notice was I sent the email on the day. So this started back in 2020. I am a nurse, and I am a nurse. I was a nurse consultant. I was a nurse consultant for like 30 to 40 schools or centers. And what happened was during the public health event, I went remote. And I want to say that that was the best and worst thing that happened to me, because I experienced what it was like to not be in a toxic workplace. And when we were called back to work, I'm just going to kind of glance at my notes sometimes. It was just like the worst thing that happened to me, having to go back to that space. It was already bad before the public health event, but when I went back, it was after. I had this supervisor. I call her Dark Triad because if anybody's not familiar with Dark Triad, it's 3 characteristics. That's narcissism, which is, I think most people know about narcissism, but the Machiavellianism, which is being calculated and cold, and then psychopathy. She exhibited all these things. And it just, it pushed me to the point I was doing work up to 12 hours a day during the pandemic, no break. When I set a boundary that I'm going to have my weekend off, I get a call Monday talking about, oh, that's going up to the top to the superintendent or whatever like that. And I'm thinking, anyway, she just started demanding so much stuff. And it got to the point where I just had to take a stand. And once I took that stand, she wrote me a really poor evaluation that was not representative of the kind of quality of work I do. Right. The very strange thing is she would write me up and then she would turn around and do exactly what I had suggested, okay? So that was another aspect of it. The other thing was she was very calculating and vindictive, okay? She would handpick whoever she wanted to promote. She would throw a figurative wrench for qualified nurses. She just liked people that were yes people, not people that were high-level thinkers like myself. So basically, she picked who she wanted. And I continued to be myself. And fundamentally, I am a very forthright, outspoken person. So what happened was a course of events happened, and I ended up having to file complaints with HR. And if anybody knows about filing for HR, as soon as you do that, you have a target on your back. So you have to think about before you do it. So I already had a target on there about that. So something happened with one of the clinic people that was under my guidance. And so I reached out to the head and I said, I expressed my concerns. And then they took it as, we don't like your tone. We don't like this. We don't like that. The tone policing, okay? So after that, I ended up having to file another complaint. And I went to this impartial meeting, quote, quote, impartial meeting with this HR person. And then after that, they said that they questioned if I was fit for duty, okay? After that, I had to get a employee rights attorney. And I did a series of response letters. I'm trying not to look at the notes, but I'm just looking at it once in a while to refresh my memory. So I did a series of response letters. So that happened around 2022. So I got that poor appraisal around 2021. I managed to get great appraisals 2022, May, 2023, May. I came back for the 2023 to 2024 school year. Things were going okay until October. We had this meeting, and after the meeting, I do what I normally do. You give a highlight of the meeting to make sure that I make sure that I understand what happened. So she took that email and used it as a template to use against me. So I will give you an example. Let's just say that I said that I went to school A to check on this client. I just sent it to her and I copy it back to myself. I blind copy just so I have a record. And then she would send an email and copy in her superior and say, reminder to be sure to go to school A and see client A. So what does it look like? It looked like I didn't do that assignment, which I have. So she did that for a series of times and copied in her supervisor. Because her supervisor isn't a nurse and doesn't know the work of a nurse, she's thinking that I'm not doing my stuff, right? She's thinking I'm not doing my stuff. So she does this. There's a meeting. Right before the meeting, she emails me this letter of concern. She's concerned. So I responded back with the help of an attorney. I had already engaged with an attorney in 2022. So there was a series, there was a series of response letters, and suddenly it just went quiet. I mean, it went quiet. So then the next thing you know, I'm in a 2-on-1 meeting with her superior, and me, and she puts me on a performance plan.
Oh, okay. You know what that means.
Yep, you know what that means. You better start looking for a job, right? So I signed it and all that because that was on advice of the attorney. The attorney said acknowledgement of receipt only, and you sign your full name. That's one tip for anybody that's going through that. The next thing in December, I'm in communication with the attorney. And at this point, the attorney has responded back, issued a warning letter to this superior, to her superior, and the head of HR. Okay. So I have an absolutely horrible Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's just horrible. I'm stressed out, right? Lack of sleep, stress, weight gain. I mean, I had gotten down to my ideal weight around 2020. So I've put on at least 25 pounds that I've still been working on getting off because I'm emotionally eating, right? And anyway, so I come back from Christmas break. That's in January. In the meantime, I'm working with my provider. I have my providers and I'm working with my attorney. My attorney says it would be best if you try to take some time off because you have medical documentation that is impacting your health. So I go ahead and I have my providers. They write me a letter. I have a stress-related diagnosis. It is a proper diagnosis. The next thing you know, right before all of this leave gets approved, I get called into a meeting with this dark triad supervisor, and she says, oh, I just want to check and see how things are doing. I'm coming over there, and the next thing you know, somebody's walking in, and if you've never been around HR, they're like real nice and cozy and, hi, how are you doing? Okay, so the next thing you know, and I have that Holy Spirit, that discernment, I realize, I'm like, I remember that name. It's a work attorney. So I had already talked to my attorney and they had given me a statement to read in case they tried to trip me up. So they're asking me about all the things I've done. So I read off this statement and the next thing you know, off I go out the door. I'm like, that's my statement. We didn't know you had an attorney. Yeah, you knew I had an attorney. They fly and play dumb so anyway, the next thing you know, I'm out the door and probably within 4 hours, they've approved my leave, okay? So I just let all my team know. I let Dark Triad, that's my supervisor. That's what I call her, because that's what she is to me. I had another name, but I've gone through healing and talked to a counselor, so I don't do that anymore. So anyway, I sent my emails and everything, and then I go off for 2.5 months, okay? 2.5 months. So while all this stuff is going on, I'm still talking to the attorney. I am now 2.5 months off, completely stressed and triggered. And my attorney suggests to me that I file an EEOC complaint. So if people aren't familiar with EEOC, that's if you fall in a protected class. If you're a minority, if you are a woman, if you're over 50, and it doesn't matter if the people you're dealing with are the same race as you. You could file a discrimination case. Yeah. They could be Latino, and you could file because they're Latino. If you're Black, you could file on a Black person. If you're white, you could file on a white person. So I just want to make sure that this isn't like a race card thing. This is a strategy, okay? So with the help of my attorney, I filed the EEOC complaint, and I stayed off for 2.5 months. But the thing is, when I came back, that just gave them more time to collect information on me. I mean, they circled those HR wagons and everything, okay? So I get back, and it's just hunting season. I'm being hunted, okay? My goal is to make it to May without getting fired, okay? I'm like, that's my goal. So I get letters of support, but there was one principal that gave me a letter of support, and all the other ones were scared. They were scared. They're like, yeah, they're scared. Yeah. So anyway, and the sad part about this was I was being harmed by, I identify as a Black woman. I'm being harmed by other people that are my same race, okay? I was born and raised in California, and I thought, ooh, if I move to the South in Atlanta and I'm around my own people, like it will be safer. But it was not safe. It was not safe. So, you know, that thing about skin folk isn't always kinfolk. I sure did learn that. So I filed the EEOC complaint. There were responses, lots of documents, probably at least 50 artifacts, documents, emails, everything, text messages. And when I came back, she conjured up this situation where it was implied that I wasn't taking care of a student the way I should. She tried to get me to send this email that all students with this said diagnosis should get this medication at this particular time. And we know that everybody is different. So I said, while I'm sitting in the parking lot thinking about what I do, I call a couple of my allies, and they're like, just ask for documentation. So when I did that, that set her off even more. She would send emails, and then she would do a one-on-one meetup and then deny that she said it. So when you're a nurse and you having people denying things like that, there was like no trust. She would give me these mixed messages and incomplete instructions. It was just horrible, okay? The next thing you know, she gives a email and then turns around and has a meeting and gives different instructions. I follow the last instructions, and then she uses that to give me one of the worst performance appraisals of my nursing career. Whew, that was in April, okay? So after that, I did a response, attorney, another warning. In the meantime, I'm having to go to these stupid Christmas parties. I know you had that video about those Christmas parties and all that stuff. I was having to do all that, and they're just fa la la, and I'm having to sit up with all this while all this chaos is going on. Okay, so we get to April, and I've gotten this bad appraisal, responses, and then we get to May. I'm still having to do the work of the school system. So eventually I make it to May, and I still have this open EEOC complaint. There's been back and forth. Let's fast forward to August. I'm now at the point where I came back to the school year, and I have strategically decided to resign since I am within a month of turning 60, within a month or two. So again, nobody knows I'm doing this. First thing I do is I get my roller, I put everything in here in this corner. Nobody sees it. I go and I turn in my security badge. This is the day before the last day. On the last day, that was the first day in August, it was a meeting at a health department. So I went ahead and I stayed there, act like nothing was going on. I went ahead and I drove to IT, dropped off my phone, sent an electronic resignation, sent a transition plan to Dark Triad supervisor. Oh, by the way, when I said goodbye to all the staff, I let them know exactly what happened, why I'm leaving. I had hoped to stay here, but since the exit of said supervisor and said mentor, it has changed the tone of the organization. I didn't hide anything. I didn't go through a side door. She had already trashed my professional brand, messed up my career trajectory in school health. So I'm like, shoot, I ain't got nothing to lose. I had already been interviewing for another job, which I have now. So she got copied into all of that stuff. And then I marked on my reason for leaving. I put hostile workplace. Yes, I did. I had to walk away from thousands of dollars of bonuses, a salary that was almost at 6 figures, and I was planning on to retire when I was Social Security age. So, I mean, when I figure out all that stuff, it cost me at least $250,000 when you figure in the insurance, the salary. But, I believe in supernatural increase from God. I mailed in my badge and my written resignation and I sent it by FedEx. So some time going on, and they did handle me with white gloves after I resigned. I had my insurances until the end of October. I got my last paycheck without a problem. Matter of fact, they at least give me at least a week's more. And I kept the right to sue active. And what'll happen is it'll expire after 90 days if you decided to not file, which I did because I'm just ready to move on. So that was a strategy. So I've gone on and I've gotten insurance, but there has been significant financial impact. I have started my own LLC. I'm doing CPR training, but I did have at least one job that I couldn't apply for. My blood pressure went up and now it's normal. I've stayed in counseling. I'm just exercising. I had this terrible skin flare on my face, and the dermatologist finally figured out what it was. I had discoloration on the left side of my face because I was in my car so much because they took away my cubicle. So I'm having to do the work of the system in my car. I got a co-working space. I had to pay for that. And just generally, anytime I would see an email from this person, it was fight, flight, and freeze. I would just freeze up just seeing the name. I didn't even have to see the person. So I'm just kind of working through things. I'm very optimistic. I've been relying on some scriptures. Philippians 4:6, don't worry about anything, pray. Philippians 4:8, think on what is pure, honest, true, lovely, and a good report. And then Isaiah 54:17, my very favorite one, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. So, yeah, that's what happened, Miss Leslie.
Oh my. Well, I'm so glad you were okay after all of that,
Yeah.
I know that stuff like this will help other people because somebody's like, oh my God, she went through because a lot of the stuff that you're saying, if anyone has been through this type of stuff, they're like, okay, I'm going through that, or I went through that. Because a lot of the stuff you're saying, I've gone through myself. So I know you're not lying. It's like these people do the same thing. It's the same person and they do it to person. And it's like, the company doesn't even do anything. It's like, how do you keep someone there doing people like this? And trust me, HR knows that this person is doing this stuff.